Anybody think they can read this number to me based on the place value chart? Haley?
4,351,231.
Okay, now when you get to the decimal, what do you say instead of saying point? What word do you substitute for the point or the decimal? And 938. Now, how you finish reading this number, you look at the place value of the last digit. It's the 8. What place value does the 8 fall on? It's 3 places behind the decimal, so what place value is that 8 in?
Thousands.
Thousands. So it would be 4,351,231 and 938 thousandths. Okay? Going to be important that you know that. What place value is the 9 in? Tenths. What place value is the 3 in? Hundredths. What place value is the 1 in? The first one. 10. Tens or ones? What do you guys think? Look at your chart. It's the place value right in front of the decimal. Say it again, Jemiah. It's the ones. Good. So use the place value chart. All right, let's flip to the next page here, or the next part of your notes. So this is what you guys need to know. This is the important step. So turning a decimal into a fraction. There's going to be 3 steps. The first step, determine the place value of the last digit in the decimal. So step 1, write this down please in this little box at the bottom here. Determine the place value of the last digit in the decimal. Once you're able to determine that, you're going to write a fraction because we're changing a decimal to a fraction. So you're going to write a fraction using the decimal, but you're taking the decimal point out as the numerator. And then the place value as the denominator. So once we find that place value, we're going to write it as a fraction. We're going to write that decimal as our numerator. And we're going to write that place value as the denominator. And then the final step, just like any final step when we're dealing with fractions, because fractions are so much fun because we always have to reduce. So when you think you're finished with them, you're really not, because you still have to reduce. So the last step when you deal with fractions is always going to be reduce or simplify. So what that basically means, as you guys are writing, if I have the decimal 0.25, so if I have the decimal 0.25, I want to change this decimal to a fraction. So step 1 says, determine the place value of the last digit in the decimal. Well, here's my last digit in the decimal, the 5. So if the 5 is the last digit in the decimal, what place value is that? What place value is that 5 in? The hundredths, right. So 100, that place value, becomes my denominator. My numerator is going to be my decimal without that decimal point. So what's that decimal without that decimal point going to be? If I take that decimal point out of that number, what do I get? So if I get rid of this decimal, what number do I write as my numerator? 25. Do I have to put that 0 in front of it? No. Nah, I can drop that 0. So it's just going to be 25. So that's step 2. Then step 3 is reduce. Well, 25 and 100, you guys can reduce using your calculator. Remember? Just put 25 fraction button 100 equals, and you'll get 1/4. Or, if you don't want to do that, you can also divide it by 5. The top and bottom are both divisible by 5. What else are they both divisible by? Really big number. 25. Good. So when you reduce it, you'll end up with 1/4 as your final answer. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and get into our examples then. So flip your paper over to the back. We're going to look at example number 1. Now your direction says, convert each decimal into a fraction. You must be able to do this without a calculator that has a fraction button. Scratch that. You guys are allowed to use a fraction button. Then you're going to simplify it. So according to our notes, step 1 says, determine the place value of the last digit in the decimal. Well, the place value of the last digit in the decimal is just the 9. That's all I have. So what place value is that? Tenths. So the tenth, the place value, becomes my denominator. So tenth, that place value becomes my denominator. So tenth represents what number? 10. Now if you notice, I have an equal sign between my 0.9 and my fraction. Always make sure you're separating each step of your problem with an equal sign. So 0.9 equals. So then my numerator, according to step 2, is going to be my decimal, the number, my decimal number without the decimal point. So what's my number without the decimal point? 9. Oh, those aren't really proportioned all that well, are they? My 9's so itty bitty compared to my 10. And then the final step, reduce. Can you simplify 9/10? No. So that's going to be my final answer. If you guys do not want to type in the fraction into your calculator to have it simplify for you, one way of well, I'll get to that in the next example. We'll do that in just a second. Okay, let's look at the next example problem. Who can read this number to me? Good. 1700ths. So, again, we're going to look at the place value of our last digit, which is the 7. What place value is that n? Hundredths. So what's my denominator? 100. Then my numerator is the decimal without, or the number without the decimal, which is 17. Can you reduce 17 over 100? No. So that is your final answer. I know you guys have done this before. For some of you guys, this is review, and you're thinking, why am I doing this? This is super easy. I promise you, as I do each triad, I will make it harder, okay? It will eventually get harder. All right. So the next part of your notes, let me just keep your head up, please, says, note on reducing. If the fraction can be reduced, it can always be reduced by what two numbers do you think we'll always try by?
2.
Or, say it again? 2 or 5. I also like to throw in the 3. So 2 or 5. The types of numbers that we're going to be working with are mostly going to be able to be reduced by 2 or 5. I mean, you might have to reduce them multiple times, but also I like to put that number 3 in there as well, because you can also reduce by that 3 sometimes. All right, let's keep going with our examples. Sorry, guys, it's with the network, it's taken me a minute. Morning. Example number 3. 0.6128. How would I read this number?
6,128 thousandths.
No. Anybody else want to give it a shot?
10 thousandths.
10 thousandths. Good. So 10 thousandths. So we're going to look at the place value of the last digit, the 8. When Darius read the number to us, you always read the number of the place value of the last digit. So he already told us the place value of the last digit, which is what? 10,000. So my denominator is going to be what? 10,000. It's going to be a big one. So then my numerator is going to be what?
8.
What's my numerator going to be?
6,128.
So 6,128. So you can reduce by hand, or you can reduce with your calculator. So if you go to type into your calculator 6,128, fraction button over 10,000, what do you end up with? You guys speak up.
383 over 625.
Do you guys all get that?
Yes, I got
No,
Wait,
I
hold on.
hate this.
Okay. So what you do In your calculator, you're going to type 6128. Then in your second row,
I'll get that. I just don't get this.
okay. In the second row, you hit your ABC button, then you type in 10,000. And then you hit equals. That simplifies it automatically for you. Now, when we are dealing with the notes that I'm giving you and the assignments that I'm giving you, I always want it written as a proper fraction or an improper fraction. I don't want a mixed number. Now, when you get to Khan Academy, they're going to want a mixed number. So when I'm saying proper fraction, improper fraction, mixed number, what does all that mean? Like if you're looking at the fraction that we just answered, that we came up with, 383 over 625, what kind of fraction is that? What kind of fraction is this? Proper, improper, or mixed?
Proper.
I'm hearing all kinds of different things. If you think it's improper, raise your hand. If you think it's proper, raise your hand. If you think it's a mixed number, raise your hand. If you have no clue, raise your hand. All right, that's all right. Okay, a proper fraction. So this is a proper fraction. A proper fraction is when your numerator is smaller than your denominator. Okay, so proper fraction, top is smaller than bottom. Improper would be if your bigger number's on top. Okay? So if your bigger number's on top. A mixed number is when you have a whole number, then the fraction part. So the whole number, then the fraction part. That would be a mixed number. Okay? So those are the three types of fractions. Okay, let's go on to example number 4. So we have 2.5. So here, we have a whole number in front of the decimal. There's multiple ways that you can solve this. The way that I want you guys to solve it first is to underline the place value of your last digit behind the decimal. So underline that last number behind the decimal, which is what, Rihanna?
5.
Okay, so underline that 5. Now, look at your place value chart. I want Rihanna to answer this one. So look at your place value chart. What place value would that 5 fall in? Tenths. So your denominator is that place value. So what's your denominator, your bottom number? 10. Okay, now according to our notes, step 2, our numerator is basically that number that we start with without the decimal point. So if I take the decimal point out of this number, what's my numerator going to be? And? Yeah, so 25. So that's your numerator. Now, what's different about this example compared to other examples?
There's two numbers.
Not that there's two numbers.
The other examples have 0 point something something. This number got 2.5.
So what kind of fraction did it give us?
Improper.
It gave us an improper fraction, right? We're going to leave it as an improper fraction this time. So we're going to leave it as an improper fraction. However, yeah, we have to reduce it. So if you type this into your calculator, 25 over 10, it's going to give you that mixed number. How do you change that mixed number back to an improper fraction? Do you remember?
Second and then ABC. And then
That's right. So what do we get when you hit the second ABC?
5 over 2.
5 over 2. So we're going to keep an improper fraction, 5 over 2.
I mean, we didn't have to do all that.
This is how I want your answers on worksheets, quizzes, and tests. Okay? I want it as an improper fraction. Now, another way to solve this though, when you go to solve it in Khan Academy, they don't want it as an improper fraction, they want it as a mixed number. So, what you would do, you would have 2.5, I would write this underneath or next to it. You're still going to look at the place value of your last digit. What's the place value of that last digit?
10.
Tenths. So you're going to put the 10. Now, this time though, you're going to take your whole number. Your whole number is the number that's in front of the decimal, and put it as your whole number in front of the fraction. So that 2 becomes my whole number. The number in front of my decimal stays my whole number. So what do you think my numerator is going to be then? 5, yeah. So 2 and 5 tenths. We're going to have to reduce this. So what am I going to reduce this to? 5 and 10 are both divisible by what? 5. So what's 5 divided by 5?
1.
What's 10 divided by 5?
2.
Okay, what's my whole number I throw up in there? What's my whole number to make this a mixed number? 2. So yeah, so 2 1/2. So there's 2 ways to do it when you're dealing with a mixed or an improper fraction. Okay, let's take a look at example number 5. So you have 0.0625. Darius, don't answer this one. When you read this number to me, how would you read it? What place value is that last 5, that last digit in? How many places? Okay, here's your decimal. How many places past the decimal is it in? 4, right? So how many spaces past 4 is it? 10 thousandths. So this is 625 10 thousandths. Now, when you have a 0 in front of the decimal point, it doesn't really mean anything. Okay? It's not a value. But when you have a decimal after, or excuse me, a 0 after the decimal point, you can't just drop it to find the place value. You need to keep it in there to find the place value. So you said the place value is going to be 10 thousandths. Thank you. So you said the place value is going to be 10 thousandths. So my denominator is what? 10,000. So my numerator, though, what could I write just as my numerator? The number without the decimal. What do I write as my numerator? The number without the decimal. Huh? Do I need to include all the zeros?
No, you don't.
No, not when I go to rewrite my numerator. So when I go to rewrite my numerator, what numbers do I put down? 625. Good. I think some of you guys mumbled it. I just didn't hear real well. Okay. Last step, step 3, reduce. 625 over 10 thousandths can be reduced down to, you guys speak up.
1 over 16.
1 over 16? Y'all agree?
Yeah.
So box it. I promise you, Darius, I'll make it harder.
Please.
No, he just won't turn those worksheets in. He doesn't complain, he just doesn't turn them in then. That's right. All right, example number 6. Last one. So before you even solve this, are you going to end up with a improper fraction or a proper fraction? Improper fraction. How do you know that?
Because this 2.
Yeah, it's got a whole number 12 in front of the decimal. So we're still going to start by solving the same way. We're going to underline the last digit of our decimal. What place value is that last digit in?
10.
So what's my denominator?
10.
My numerator then is just that number without the decimal point.
5.
So just the entire number without the decimal point.
So we put 1C.
It's written down here. I don't know what's wrong with it today. I actually have 10, not 1C. It's just behind.
You gotta simplify.
So what do? What's my numerator going to be?
5.
It's the entire number without the decimal. 125. So basically, you take the decimal out and you write the whole number over top of it. So 125. Why did that? That is crazy that everything else came in but my 10. There we go. So that's step 2. Step 3, reduce. So it's 125 over 10. Reduced or simplified to?
25 over 2.
Did y'all use y'all calculator? Oh.
So what is it?
25 over 2.
Y'all agree?
No.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that.
What is you talking about, Darius?
Hey, my calculator says something else. Okay.
What's your calculator say?
12.
Okay, so Darius says 12 and 1/2. So what type of answer did Darius end up with? Joey, hold on. A mixed number. Do I want my answer as a mixed number for my worksheets and quizzes? No. So how do you change that mixed number back to an improper fraction. Second fraction equals. Okay? Okay. So that is it. So we're going to stop there. Don't start talking.